Hi, this is Grace Quantock, and I'm here with Mara Glatzel for a Trailblazers interview. Mara is, of course, an amazing wellness trailblazer. She is also an intuitive guide and energy healer, and an intuitive life and business guide. You can find all her amazing work at maraglatzel.com. That's maraglatzel.com. And hi, Mara, thank you for joining us.
Hi, it's so great to be here.
Thank you. No, it's wonderful to have you, and you've said it's a beautiful day, and I think we've all got the sunlight coming in, so it's a nice time to be enjoying this right now. And what I wanted to talk to you today, because what so much has spoken to me in your writings, is about working with rest, with what our bodies truly are, with where we truly are, and with so much compassion in the world. Your writing, especially in your newsletter, always feels to me just like this well of solace and rest and rejuvenation and peace in what can be a lot of missives asking me to do something. Because, like, I love newsletters, but I have the unroll.me where it rolls up all your newsletters. It's fantastic. But lots of things are asking for an action. And yours just seem to just sink in and just, it's like a mental massage. It's fantastic.
Thank you. I love hanging out there. It's so funny. It's become kind of a place of solace for me too. I used to write a lot on my blog or in other places, but the newsletter, it's like having a nice quiet little conversation with a friend.
I
And
do
I
get
always
that
love it too.
feeling.
And I always read them too. It's like I wrote them for myself. I love that.
Yeah. I think often the best writing comes out of that is what we write, what we need to know. And it just, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, can you talk to us about rest and what is rest and the context I ask around that is a lot of people watching and listening may have chronic illness, and I know I also have fatigue, and I know have your own experiences. So sometimes rest can be such a contentious issue. It can be such a charged word. Like you're forced to rest because you can't do things. And it's just there's so much stuff we know we need to. So much stuff around it. I'd love to get your take on it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing that I think about when I think about rest is that it is a universal need that all humans have, and that it's not something that, makes us weak or makes us less deserving or not productive or, all of those things that we tend to tell ourselves about rest. Because for myself and for the women that I work with, it seems like we think that, our need for rest is something that we're supposed to be getting over or getting away from or harnessing our ability to do without rest, like it's some sort of badge of honor. And really reframing that so that we think about it in a way that it's less of this hindrance to our ambition or to our dreams or to our lives as we may want them, and rather the thing that allows us to show up in the world the way that we want to. If we think about it more like a cycle, that rest really allows us to show up and to create and to produce and to be ourselves and shine the way that we are, have relationships the way that we want to, and then that those things drain us and then we need rest again. That it is a natural cycle of things and not something that we need to be embarrassed about, not something that we need to apologize for, but rather that we all need it. And, that's coming for me from a place of having been to some spots of significant burnout in my life. And, really realizing that if I was going to need or going to continue to show up in the world the way that I want to, that I was going to have to find a way to live more sustainably.
Mm.
And, maybe I'm not getting everything done today, but I also then don't have to take all of this time off on the other side to recover, when I get to that place of really deep burnout. And instead to create something, I think balance is such a loaded term, but something that's a little bit more like cohesive.
Yes, I know. I'm getting shivers as you're speaking. It's so there with you, and creating something that's more sustainable rather than the boom and bust pattern of
Hmm.
like doing all the things. And it's something we talk about quite a lot with my coaching clients. Is if somebody has a good day when they're living with chronic illness or pain, and they have like a good day, as in a day which, and I'm saying good because if we divide days with lots of painful symptoms and days without lots of painful symptoms into good and bad, then that's quite difficult because then you might have mostly bad days, and that's really, really hard. But when people have a day where their symptoms are lesser, it can just be like standing on the edge of freedom. It's like, yes, I want to do all the things, and that becomes, if I can
Hmm.
just make that forever, that's the way to go. And that's what people are thinking. And I feel like there's something around this idea that success comes from hustle, and that hustle is polarized against rest, and you're either like you rest and you're inefficient, or you hustle and then you just like you do this stuff and it hurts, but it doesn't like truly damage your body or life on any level. You're kind of like a superhero. You just recharge just naturally. Just doesn't You don't need to do anything about it. It just comes. And I've never known anybody who's actually like that. I've never known that to exist in a human,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is hard to say because I think I spent a lot of time trying to be that person. And I wrote an article recently which is something like, I'm sorry to break it to you, but you're not a robot, and nor am I.
Exactly. Yeah, it can be really difficult. And I think, it's something that I have experienced in my whole life. And, at the moment, I'm 8.5 months pregnant and, I'm experiencing it in a whole new way. It's like some days I have a lot of energy, but if I do too much with that energy, then it'll be a week and a half before it comes back or longer. And so like finding those ways to really be kind to yourself. And, sometimes it's hard because I'm a really ambitious person and I want to do all of the things. Always. I always want to do all of the things. But, giving myself that permission is something that I love to do, is to like write all of the things down. So it feels like my ideas there's a catch-all for them. So that it's a little bit more safe to ease in, because I think part of it's like that frantic energy of I might forget, or somebody else is going to have that idea, or, what if I don't get it all done? So, having a place like a receptacle to put all of those good ideas so that you can get to them in your own right timing helps with that frantic energy around production.
Totally. And I think for me, looking at other ways that people engage about rest, so like if somebody's having trouble with rest and they're listening to you discussing it here or us discussing it here, I think that can be so important because you're feeding yourself nourishing alternative narratives about rest, which aren't the status quo of hustle, 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 and then you can rest when you retire.
Hmm.
And I know you've written a little bit about the illusion of rest, about what you've so eloquently called junk food rest. Are you able to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I think that there's a lot of times where we are giving ourselves what we may think of as an acceptable form of rest, which is different than the rest that we actually crave. So, whether that's it's a lot of scrolling for me. Scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling. And it's like, I know myself well enough to know that if I'm scrolling, what I actually need is a nap. What I actually need is to shut down my computer and go outside. But there's something about sitting at my computer that feels a little bit productive, feels a little bit like something that's, more acceptable to me. There's something about just laying down or going outside that feels really blasphemous. Like I couldn't just do that, that's too restful. But, these ways that we try to nourish ourselves with this junk food rest, we're never full. And so then we have this false sense of an idea of ourselves like, well, it doesn't matter if I rest anyway because it never fulfills me. I never feel satiated. And yeah, a Netflix binge or scrolling through Facebook or, sitting on your couch with your computer open may not fulfill you, but that doesn't mean that you cannot be fulfilled. So kind of paying attention to that, because I think for everybody, we have these sort of like part way to rest things that we do, which is almost like as much as we can allow ourselves, but it doesn't actually feel good. It doesn't actually feel like it fills us back up.
No.
And for me, that's the definition that I use for rest. It's like if something fills me up when I'm doing it, energetically. And it could be a lot of different kinds of things, but, noticing those things that are subtly draining that seem like they should be nourishing, or that we tell ourselves that they are nourishing. So those are those kinds of, it's like, the difference between eating some junk food versus eating like a really good meal. And then you're full, you're really full. And just being in that conversation with yourself, which is not about judgment, but it's just about noticing like, wow, I tried to do that for myself and it didn't feel good. It didn't feel like anything really. So what else could I do instead?
I love so much of what you just said. I'm actually wanting to like listen to it back right now to kind of dig into it more because there's so much there. And I think, yeah, there's so much about. I love what you said at the beginning about noticing that when you're scrolling, that means for you, that's like a behavior that you can notice and you go, when I'm doing this, I probably actually need to go and do something else. So it's like, when we find ourselves doing certain um, illusions of rest, we know that this is actually a sign that I need to go and do something else. And I love working with, because I've worked with people with eating disorders and all that. We try not to do like good and bad or allowed and not allowed, because I feel like they're very polarized and it kind of is not a helpful dialogue. So instead, I work with optimum and non-optimum. So optimum makes us feel at our optimum.
Mm-hmm.
Non-optimum doesn't make us feel as good, but we can still do it because we're adults and we get that choice and we can choose to do what we want to do, and that's okay. And maybe you'll choose to do it, and maybe you'll enjoy it, and maybe you won't enjoy it, and that's okay too. But you can notice and think, well, within this time that I have available, do I want to do something which feels non-optimum, but I can kind of rationalise? Or do I actually want to do something that makes me feel at my optimum? And then notice and kind of step up sometimes. But I think even just noticing is so important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree. We are adults, and that's like the best thing that we have that choice. I can totally choose to sit here and watch TV, and I can totally choose to scroll through Facebook. And even just noticing, and having it, because sometimes it's different from day to day.
Totally.
An activity will be restful one day and not the next. So, being really present, I think, is always so important. And it's like the presence and then plus the permission. Because, it's like I used to think my work was so important that I didn't have time to go outside for, even like 20 minutes. And then I started to just get myself to go outside and go for a walk around the block and shut everything down. And it was like, lo and behold, the world didn't end when I walked out my front door. So sometimes it's like we need to encourage ourselves a little bit to take those extra steps to do the things that feel uncomfortable. It's like, oh, can I really allow myself to shut everything down and take a nap, like an actual real life nap? Um, and then when you do it, you get to realize you have that visceral, like bodied experience. Like, okay, well, I went outside, or I took a nap, or I took the afternoon off, or I shut off my phone, and my business didn't break. My relationship isn't over. My life is still relatively intact. But all of those things that really help us, because when you feel it in your body, then you know that it's true. Then you know that it's possible.
Totally. And I think I'd like to add another P to that list potentially, which isn't actually potentially. It's pre-symptoms, because I'm wondering about. I don't know if you do this, but I know my own thing is that I will be working or doing something, and I'll get to the point where I need to rest. Or actually, I have a timer on my computer that tells me that I need to rest, and tells me to close the computer and do eye exercises and get up and move around and stop just being at the computer. And what is really easy to do is get to the point where I need to rest, but I'm already so fatigued that actually getting off the sofa or the chair or wherever, or I often work on an exercise ball, so that's where I'm
Hmm.
sitting now, which is why I kind of can shift around a little bit. It's good for my back, my pelvis. It's really good, and I'm kind of stuck because I'm already so tired that actually getting up and engaging in optimum rest feels too hard. So it's like perhaps I'll just look on the internet for a while because
Hmm.
apparently because that is so fueling for me, which it isn't. Of course it isn't. It's more screen time. It's not doing that for me. It can be fueling consciously, but and I wonder if noticing the things that happen which mean I'm soon going to need a rest and then setting up a rest. So like I'm in my studio at the moment, which is where I see clients, and actually I know you can't see with the camera, but I have a day bed. And so that's set up. I didn't used to have one. So it used to be that if I wanted to rest, I had to go and move everything and set everything up to be able to lie down and have a nap, which is just a huge amount of work to do when you're already tired. So kind of noticing what I need to be able to get to the rest and set things up has personally made a huge difference for me in terms of resting.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that any way that we can support ourselves to get that rest or to, just be comfortable in our own environment is so important because you are so right. It's like I always think about it like like a little kid, like a 3-year old. And when they get past the point of their nap time, like they're just melting down completely. And I see it in myself. It's like if I push it and I push it and I push it, then I'm just resistant and melting down and just it's like now I don't want to rest, like now I'm like completely irrational. um
I'm not tired. I'm not going to bed. I'm
yeah,
staying
exactly.
up. No bed.
Like I'm scrolling.
I can
um,
do this.
yeah, and so I
Yeah.
love having those ways, like sort of set up a timer on your computer. That's an awesome idea. I should use that myself. um
Well, it's actually I put it on the interview, but it's called iCare, and it's a free Chrome extension, and you can set it, and every 20 minutes it kind of blanks out your screen, and it has a little message for you. And mine says something like, "Hello, beautiful, take care of you, like future you thanks you," and it blocks that, and it has a little thing that comes up and tells you what eye exercises to do, and it tells you to get up and move around. It's got like 5 steps, and you have to go through each step. And every 20 minutes, sometimes you're working, you're just like, darn it, message. I don't want to rest my eyes right now. But every time I do, it makes a and what it says actually is very true. It said your eyes are already sore because they're tired from staring at the screen for this long, but you haven't realised yet.
hmm
I think you've got some wisdom, Chrome extension. That's true.
yeah, it is true. When I was in graduate school, I got this thing that happened with my eyes where they got really red and they got really inflamed, and I all of a sudden woke up and I had really reduced vision in one of my eyes, and I couldn't wear my contact lenses for a really long time, and it was so painful and so disorienting. And the whole thing was just from looking at my computer screen because I was in school, and I was also running my business, so I was on my computer all the time. And it's true. It's like your eyes are sore. You don't think about things like that. Or, your muscles just from sitting. Like, I love it. I sit on an exercise ball too. That really helps me. But, your muscles just from sitting or, whatever it might be, your physical body needs that rest so that you can keep doing it because we're not these like renewable energy creators. Like we have to tend to ourselves so that we can have that energy and be able to keep doing the things that we want to do. And so it is really important, even when you're sitting there like, I do not want to do my eye exercises right now, or I don't want to get up and go outside or whatever it might be. It really, like for me, it helps so much to reframe it from like there's something wrong with me that I can't keep working the way other people can, or that I'm not as productive as somebody else might be, to because I'm invested in living my life this way and showing up and being whole and doing this work. It's like I have to take care of myself so that I can keep doing that.
And I think that's a top tip for anybody who's watching or listening who's an entrepreneur or running their own business or working, especially while living with an illness or disability or wanting to heal. Because I think there is such a narrative for all of us, ill, non-ill, disabled, non-disabled, around I don't know. To me, a lot of it seems quite capitalist. So it's like, let's go and let's. And I always remember my qigong teacher talked about the heart, and she said that we always think about the heart as it never stops and it never sleeps and it keeps going and it's the hardest working organ. And I'm sure it is, but it rests because it beats and it stops and it beats and it rests. And so she said that when we were learning more about the workings of the heart, this has become more well known in society, especially in Britain, it was the same time as the Industrial Revolution. And so we kind of conflated those two together and thought like heart, industry, factories, workers, and it all kind of got kind of mixed up. Whereas actually, I look at factories and workers and everything keeping going, keeping going, keeping going, and then I look at how my dog is and the therapeutic horses and the garden and outside, and I think, well, that doesn't work without stopping. And when we try and make the earth work without stopping, we end up with some real problems, like, the intensive farming and everything. And do I think that I'm so separate from the earth that I can make myself work the entire time and never, never rest, and that will have no impact on the the body of me whatsoever, just as it has an impact on the body of the earth? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, for me too, like thinking about like that heart pumping you rest. Um, and just to think about it that in that way, it just normalizes it so much, right? Because we do live in this capitalist society where, the internet doesn't sleep. People are working themselves so hard and wearing that as a badge of honor. And so to be kind of putting yourself outside of that system can feel so uncomfortable. So any way that you can normalize that, and whether that's having like-minded friends or reading things that make you feel inspired, or even thinking that cyclical idea that we can't just keep going all the time, and that it's like bears hibernate.
Yeah.
Right? The ocean ebbs and flows, the tide comes in and out. It's like we have all of these examples in the natural world around us of the fact that you can't just keep going all the time. And, that it's not because there's something wrong with you particularly, or me particularly, or any of us, but that we're just part of that natural system around us. And that system includes rest.
Totally. So grateful for this conversation. It's so healing for me to hear this too. And so I wanted to ask if you could ask people watching or listening, because we talked about a lot of different things, a lot of options, if they could do one thing to begin, what might that be?
I think my favorite thing, my favorite practice of all practices is to even like in the morning, I used to usually do it while I'm lying in bed because it's really quick. I just kind of ask myself, what do I need today? And it's just an invitation to tune in to my body in this exact moment, right? And it might be that I'm feeling a little dehydrated or a little anxious or a little tired, like asking ourselves that question every day and being present to what our physical capacity is for the day. Leads us to have that greater relationship with ourselves, to have that greater conversation. So I think it's like, there's self-care. It's like a huge conversation, right? There's so many things you can do, but just having like a 3-minute chat with yourself in the morning, like, what do I need today? And then trying to prioritize that. It's like, do I need a little extra water? Sure. Do I need to be a little bit more like compassionate with myself today? Okay, and to tune into the actual, what is actually going on in your body in this exact moment. Because we have a tendency to think about ourselves, it's like, well, I always need these things, or I always need, whatever. And it's not true, because our needs change from day to day. And so even just asking that question and allowing yourself to feel into your own skin, it's like, maybe I'm a little dehydrated. I need a little bit more water today. Maybe I'm a little bit tired. I need to move at a slower pace. Or I'm feeling a little tender. I need some extra like affirmation or, compassionate words. that we can give ourselves those things, and that it doesn't take, it doesn't take a long time. It's not a huge process, but just starting by asking yourself that one question in the morning so that you can be present to your own skin, that you can be present to what your needs are for this day. And, you can be that much closer to meeting them. And, also remembering that it's a practice. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's simply an attempt to kind of take care of yourself and to be present to knowing that from one day to the next, our needs vary, and that we're allowed to have those needs met, no matter what they are.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. I will certainly be doing that. And thank you so much for joining us today. And just remind everybody where they can find you online and where they can engage with your amazing work.
Well, you can find me at maraglatzel.com. That's where I'm hanging out all the time. But the best place to really be in any kind of conversation with me is I have a weekly newsletter. It goes out Wednesday mornings, and it's my favorite place to hang out. I would love it if you wanted to come hang out with me there. And, I talk about all of these kinds of things every week. So I would love to hang out with you over there. And you can find it on my website over in the nav bar under newsletter.
Fantastic. I'm sure everybody will be joining you there. I know I'm very happy to be there. Thank you. And we will look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you for joining us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Grace.
It's my pleasure. Bye-bye. And thank you everybody for watching and listening. Keep coming back to gracequantock.com for more Trailblazer interviews. And thank you for being here. I think you're awesome.